The original Game Boy library has 4 of these arcade classic compilation cartridges that feature handheld ports of a pair of legendary titles from the golden age of arcade gaming. Well, some might argue that there were actually 5, although the one entitled Arcade Classics, with an S on the end, without a number attached, was not actually by Nintendo, and only featured 2 rubbish versions of Battlezone and Super Breakout. What I'm talking about are the Nintendo-published ones numbered 1 through 4, which brought us things like Galaga, Galaxian, Centipede, and Asteroids, and had some really cool cabinet mock-ups if you played the cartridge in your Super Game Boy SNES adapter. Number 4 in that series featured 2 of Williams' most famous arcade products, Defender and Joust, and the Game Boy ports were programmed by Williams themselves. It was probably the weakest of the 4 cartridges, if for no other reason than Joust is the least well known out of all 8 chosen games in the series, and Defender is a bullshit game made by trolls. A bit of an extravagant description for a game that has its fanbase for sure, but god do I despise Defender with a passion. I'm not sure whether the 2 came as a package deal, but some 3.5 years after this compilation came out, the same 2 games were again wanged together and put out in colour by Midway. It seems Midway were trying to start their own Midway Presents series of arcade ports on the Game Boy Color. There were several on PlayStation and PC and things already, but they'd only put out one other compilation on the handheld, that being Moon Patrol and Spy Hunter. So yeah, I don't know why it came to be that Joust and Defender were paired up again. It could just be coincidence, although there are some passing similarities between the 2 games, but you'll perhaps be glad to learn that, as with Paperboy from last week, they have at least been completely reprogrammed, rather than just coloured in and reissued. And again, these versions are undoubtedly better. Not only do both games look much closer to the arcade originals, but they play way better too. Sure, they're still both just early 80s games, and so come with those exact limitations that you'd expect, but for faithful reproductions, you'd be hard-pressed to find better than this on a handheld. The aim of Joust, if you're unfamiliar, is, while riding your turkey or whatever it is, to knock out all the other turkey-riding, javelin-wielding folks by running into them. You need to hit them from above. If the other guy is higher than you by even a pixel, they'll knock you off instead. Once you do that, catch the egg that falls out of their turkey and move on to the next level. Control is a little unusual in that you can run left and right along the platforms, but you move upwards by rapidly pressing the button to flap your wings, descending with gravity once you stop flapping. It's a balancing act between trying to get to the higher platforms without rebounding off the underside of something, which will more than likely send you lower to get struck by an enemy. Comparing this to the earlier Game Boy version, the controls feel much more fluid now, which, while not making the game any easier, certainly makes it fairer and more learnable. Plus, the sound effects definitely add something. Defender, as I've already said, is always an annoying game. Even when done well, the aim is to pilot your extremely fragile spaceship across a wraparound landscape shooting aliens. They'll be descending trying to steal your brainless humans, or flying around trying to shoot you. Any contact from an alien or one of their projectiles is instant death on your part. This port is definitely a bit fairer. The earlier one had this tendency to start you on a level right next to a couple of aliens with 0 grace period. You'd have to hit your smart bombs within a split second of the stage starting to avoid dying. Plus, enemy deaths shoot out a bunch of harmless pixels that look exactly like enemy bullets. You'd instinctively try to dodge them and run into actually dangerous stuff by doing so. Whether all that nonsense is reduced in the Game Boy Color version is unclear, or whether it's the introduction of the vibrant color schemes that help in this regard, but either way, this is definitely the superior of the 2 ports. Plus, when trying to prevent a capture, I'd always seem to hit the human on the earlier version. Doesn't happen so much here. The game's still a troll, though. You'll either like it or you won't. Again, this cartridge seems to right the wrongs a bit of before. Whether it has a place in 1999 is open for debate. The game's already felt really dated by 1995, but they're there, and it was perhaps still close enough to the early 80s for nostalgia to have sold this one.